It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program. We got State Representative Mickey Gates is on the line. Mickey, how are you, sir?
Good morning. It's early.
It is. It is. I don't know. This may be the first time we've had you on with a new time slot.
It is. And, of course, as a legislator, most legislators are that I know that are, they're up late reading bills and talking about bills and, responding to emails at 2:00 in the morning. And so 7 o'clock saying, yes, I'll take it. You're going, what am I saying? So
I understand. Well, hey, listen, I need to ask you before we get started on, talking about what's coming down the pike. I got to ask you about your situation. I know it's an ongoing court case. I know, it has to do with income taxes and things like that. I just want to give you a chance to respond. Were you think you were targeted at all by the state of Arkansas?
You're right. I have to be very careful what I say because, again, my attorney, I don't want to make my attorney mad. I will just say this. When you're a person trying to reduce the size of government, there are some people in government that don't want to be reduced. And, we talk about draining the swamp and there's alligators that live in the swamp that kind of like the swamp. And, there is pushback when you're trying to reduce what government can do and what they can't do. And sometimes those in government don't appreciate efforts to reduce government's ability to control our lives.
Yeah. Well, I think, when it's all said and done, what I'll be most interested in, Mickey, obviously is the results of the case, but also, whether or not information given by the government is reliable, or is it something that changes, depending on what the political climate is. And, we've seen that you wouldn't be the first if that is indeed how it ends up. You wouldn't be the first because we got that CNH hog farm up there and they've jumped through every hoop the government's told them to, and they still didn't get their permit. So, we're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Mickey, what do you see coming down the pike in this session? You got any issues that are important to you, sir?
Well, I do. We're still working. I work some with Senator Clark on reforms in DHS and child maltreatment and just trying to reform what government can and cannot do. A lot of times as conservatives, they say, well, why'd y'all pass so many bills? Well, first of all, bills in Arkansas can only pertain to one issue. You can't have one bill that does 10 different things. So consequently, every time you want to reduce government in an area, there has to be a bill. We just passed a bill the other day that said we're reducing the cost of getting and renewing your concealed carry permit. That required a bill, and it's got to go through the process. And there was debate that it's going to take them, whatever it was, $1.5 million out of state police fund for training that they use for training their officers. Well, I think most of us are committed because we don't want to keep the cost of people being able to have the permit. We still can carry, even if you don't have your permit. We have a right to carry law or state. So we just want to reduce the burden of government on people and shoulder that burden somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think generally that is good to reduce the fee. I want the Arkansas State Police to eventually just embrace the fact that we are a constitutional carry state and start marketing that license for reciprocity. Market it for us as a service while people travel out of state. And I think that's what the law, that's really the only option they have. But,
there's other states. I learned yesterday that there's other states that you can buy a permit from them and you can buy an out of state permit. You don't even have to be a resident of their state. I think there's 4 states that do that: Arizona, Florida, Virginia, and some other state. And you don't even have to. So an Arkansan could buy a Arizona concealed carry permit that's good in like 30 different states, 35 states or something. One of the things we want to do in government is, instead of everybody bearing this cost of all of the government, there's some point that you just say, why don't we see, and it's not true with every service, but there are some services of government that you just say, let those who use that service, let them bear the burden of that.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of the things that has come down over the interim from last session was water. And I think something will come down. Senator Clark will lead a task force. But one of the things is we have some municipalities that their water systems that have been there forever is collapsing, and they have done very little to maintain it. And so when they were asked, why haven't you maintained it? Well, if we went to the vote of the people to is that the state of Arkansas pay for their broken water systems.
Let's talk
what
about
all the what about all the cities that went ahead to their people and said, look, guys, we've got to pay for our new water system, and we're going to have to raise the rates. Why would the rest of the state have to help that community because its leaders were too weak to tell their residents that they had to pony up because their cost of their water had to go up because the delivery cost more? And why should the rest of the state bail them out?
Yeah. We're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Let's talk about roads. To tax the people more, to not tax the people more, to refer it to a vote, to not refer it to a vote. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let's put on the table, first of all, before we say for or against, let's just say the facts. Here's the facts. Over the last 30 years, revenues have been flat. They have been flat because vehicles have become more efficient. And because they've been efficient, even though we have more drivers, the revenue has been almost flatlined. It's gone up a little bit, very little. Although the cost per mile to pave a road has gone up phenomenally. Barrel of oil was going up so high, and pavement is made out of oil products. So the cost of every mile has gone up. Labor, the state of Arkansas just voted to raise labor. Every road, every mile of every road just went up in every town, in every highway. So that means it's going to cost us more because the people said we want to pay every state employee more money because that's always happens. Anytime you raise the bottom, everybody else gets a raise on the most part. So the cost of doing business just went up. So having said that, the question is, how do we fund the state needs? Because I'm one of those people that travel that just hate a lot of our roads. I, for one, right now at this point, the question is, I think right now they're going to say, let's go to the vote of the people. I served in the quorum court in Garland County for 20 years. We, on the county level, never raised taxes in 20 years I was on the court because we just made do with what we had. Now, there was a few things that we did. For instance, when we needed a $40 million jail, we referred to the people and said, we want to build a $40 million jail. We need a tax to build it, and then we need a tax to maintain it after it's built. The building of the tax will go away once it's built. But we had had a history over 20 years of going to the people saying, would you give us this short-term tax for 4 or 5 years, raise the money when it's paid for, that goes away.
That's all right.
We did that, and when that tax went away, when that project was paid for, and so and I think when you have a history of that kind of response, I'm not prepared right now to go to the voters and say we need more money.
Okay.
Because I think personally, I think there's places that for instance, I've been one of those that have fought the expansion of Medicaid. And if we've got enough to pay the insurance premiums of a couple $100,000, a couple 100,000 people, and we can pay their $500 a month plus insurance premiums, I think we've got some money. And I think I'm not willing to go to the voters yet and say we've done all that we can do on the state level.
Well, again, we're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates. Yeah, it's a complicated issue, for sure. Definitely, got to have money. This is what drives me nuts is, roads are the one thing that everybody agrees on that we should be doing. I mean, I think,
Right.
everybody wants good roads, but not everybody wants this program or that program or this program or that program, that's servicing
Right.
not the majority of the population. So I would
Right.
love to
Well,
I would love to reprioritize and say, well, this is what we all agree the government should be doing is paying for roads.
right.
And that'd be better
Now,
to
here's
me.
what most people don't. Well, and most people don't realize that. I think Arkansas is like fourth or seventh in the nation of number of miles per paved road per person. And the reason that happened is years ago when the road department was underneath the legislature, because Arkansas has a lot of um, uh, second homes for the wealthy, because we have mountains, we have streams, we have the lakes. And because of that, a lot of the wealthy, well, a lot of legislators were those who had second homes. And when they needed their dirt road paved to their house, they would just get it taken into the state road system. And that's why we have so many roads per person, miles per road per person. I think we pretty much have a consensus that, yes, we need to do something. And as anything else, we govern by consensus. So there are going to be very good conservatives that are on the other side that said, okay, we believe that, and I'm fundamentally in agreement that one of the things that, and I'm not one of those that think we need to let the public vote on everything. We have a representative form of government, and in a republic, we elect people to go do a job and don't pass everything over to the people to vote on.
Mm-hmm.
Go do your job, even if it's difficult.
Yeah.
So there will be people and conservatives on both sides of this issue. This is not one to say, oh, you're a liberal because you voted to raise taxes. The fact that you voted to allow the people to vote for themselves at what level they're going to be taxed, there is nothing wrong with that. I believe in that. I fundamentally believe in that. But for me, I have a hard time referring to the people unless I've done everything I could do on a state level.
Yeah.
To get to that point before we say, guys, I don't see any other alternative. When we went to the people and said we need to build a county jail,
Yeah.
we could not afford to build a $40 million. Money just was not there.
So that kind of brings me to my last question, because I know you got to go. We're talking with State Representative Mickey Gates from District 22. So generally speaking, I'm worried that when this is all said and done in April and May, the people will be paying more money to the government than they're paying now. Even though we have income tax cuts coming, we're told, that's great. But if you cut the income tax by X and then you raise taxes elsewhere by Y more than what X is worth, to me, that's a tax increase. Mickey, what are your thoughts? Are you worried about that?
I'm always concerned about that. I had some flack last session when I voted against the military retirement cut. And I voted against that, although I probably represent more military retirees than any other legislator. And the reason why I did that is because while we were yelling tax cut on one end, we were raising taxes with the other hand. And I thought it was disingenuous, because I just don't want to do that. I don't want to call something a tax cut and over here and the net effect is a tax increase. So, and sadly, I don't have a lot of confidence in DF&A when they say this is going to cost this and this is going to do that. I have little to no confidence in them because they are part of the problem because they buy whatever number they put. If they want something, they put a low number. If it's a bad number, they put a low one. If they want it, then they put a high number. And, that's just how it works. And that's why I have no confidence. It's like we talk about nationally when congressmen and senators talk about, I think it's the CBO, whatever that's called. They go, it's going to cost, $400 billion. And people are like, it's not going to cost that. Get real. Well, that's because those swampy people don't want it. Yeah. And state government has that same thing. We have people in positions of policy in budget that are not just giving you yes and no answers. They're dictating the answer by what their agenda is.
State Representative
And
Mickey Gates, I really appreciate you being with us as always, sir. Thanks for taking time out of your day to talk to us.
Thank you. And I met your father last night. We were at a reception last night with.
That's exactly right.
There were 3 legislators. We were sitting there having some meatballs and some spinach dip or something. And I saw the last name, and he said, "Well, y'all may know my son."
Sounds
and I
just
said,
like
"Are you kidding me? I got a 7 o'clock appointment with him in the morning." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, and I'm telling you now, it's going to be early." So
yeah.
Anyway, it was
I
a
appreciate
pleasure.
that.
It was a pleasure. Well, we invite the public. This is the people's building. We invite the public to come and participate. We give them a seat at the end of the table in our committees to be able to express their concerns and their viewpoints, whether they're right, wrong, informed or not. This is a citizen government, and their participation is welcome.
All righty. State Representative Mickey Gates, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks so much.
All right, bye-bye.
All righty.